Hi, everyone. Welcome to Conservative Voice Radio. This is Jan Reed, and I'm sitting here with my compatriots from the Banning Beaumont Cherry Valley Tea Party. Glenn, Diane, and Peter are with me today, and as typical, we have so much to talk about. All that happened last week, you could fit in a month of Sundays, I'm telling you. But I am happy to report that the patient that was about to commit suicide has been saved. That patient, the United States of America.
Yay.
Wait till I tell you the story, folks. First of all, I have to tell you about, we're going to be on the border again, but only because something new has occurred as of last night. Firstly, let me tell you about two things that got my Irish up so much that I called all my representatives and the White House yesterday to complain. Number one, the TSA is now allowing illegal migrants on aircraft without IDs or searches. Why? In order to fly them all over the country because the border is bulging. Secondly, El Paso is now looking for French and African dialect speakers. Why? People are coming from Africa.
From those areas.
From those areas. So this tells you the magnitude of what's going on. And let me get to the main topic. Many on the left said, Trump is bluffing about the tariffs on Mexico. Well, 48 hours after the supposed bluff, up comes the president of Mexico and all the high officials to talk. They did talk, and as of yesterday, boom, they made an agreement. Guys, let's talk about this agreement.
That's right. They're going to take responsibility for their southern border now. And they're going to account for the people traveling through. And this didn't just start here. This is a good first step. It started days ago when Trump was putting forth this idea that someone's got to pay for it. And he said he was going to shut the border down. Now, I don't know too many Mexican officials that are keen on that idea because of the billions of dollars that go back and forth over that line, to their benefit, by the way.
Well, remember last week we talked about the tariffs, 5%, 10%,
right.
15%, et cetera. That put a scare in them.
Right. So what happened was a couple of days ago, I brought this up this morning, there was an investigation into 26 individuals who benefit from human trafficking on the border. They know who these 26 people are, and the government, Donald Trump, says, here's the list. You better do something about these 26. Well, this Ministry of Financial Intelligence unit from Mexico froze the accounts of 26 drug cartels.
Oh, that's great.
Okay.
Wow.
And he got their attention. Okay. And then the negotiations started. Then Mexico came up after these 26 bank accounts were frozen. These are the people who were paying for the flood of migrants to come from the corners of the earth to come up through Panama. They come to Panama.
Oh, from China, Africa, Mali,
right.
I mean, you name it. Diane, they also arrested the guy that was orchestrating the caravans yesterday. Did you know that?
No, wow.
So between these two issues, I think we're going to have a change happen. But Diane, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about the deal they signed.
Well, I know that they didn't want to have to pay that extra 5%, tax or whatever, the tariff. And so here they come up to the deadline, and they decided, we don't really want to pay this, so we're gonna meet with Trump. We're gonna cook up a deal here, and in order for us to avoid this tax, they're thinking we're not going to have the catch and release anymore. So we're going to do our part on making sure that doesn't happen. We're going to also allow the migrants to get work permits before their asylum court hearings
in Mexico.
And they're going to be in Mexico. The migrants can be returned to Mexico until their asylum claims can be heard by. I like that part.
Yes.
Because once they get in here, and we had a meeting, didn't we, in Redlands at the Mill Creek Cattle Company Tea Party. And there was a guest speaker. He was from the Border Patrol, and he had it up to his eyeballs. because they worked so hard. He was in charge of driving the buses that would take these illegal aliens into the United States. I mean, they're already in here because all they have to do is say, I want to apply for asylum, or I'm with a child, and they're here. And so he was our guest speaker, and he said almost all of them that do that they're here, and it's tough. We're here.
It's a fraud. Glenn, what's your take on this agreement?
Well, I'd just like to say that it was Donald Trump that actually initiated doing something and threatened him with a 5%, and then he was going to incrementally increase that to 25%. I don't think Mexico could withstand the 5% tariff. I think their economy is so fragile and stressed that they just changed governments. They put a new president in. There's somewhat of a socialist, and I feel nervous about that. But I think he and others realize that they're sitting on a time bomb down there. And America has had a large influence over the Mexican people. They know about liberty. They know about freedom. And if we squeeze them a little bit on their revenue down there, they could have a Mexican revolution on their hands. And Donald Trump did the smart thing by putting a squeeze on them. And I think if necessary, he'll squeeze them again. We need to see that stopped at the border. Let these people come through legally. We'll process them. If they're okay, let them in. If they're not, ship them back.
That's not going to happen, because with this deal, what they did, this is very important, they wrecked the cartel's labor trafficking business, which depends on migrants getting U.S. jobs to repay their smuggling debts. So now Mexico, who sent their National Guard to their southern border, is not only stopping this, but whoever does manage to get through and claim asylum, Mexico is called the first safe country. Before, they used to skip over Mexico and come to the ATM called the United States. So now they have to stay in Mexico. We have promised we will help them get those people jobs. And so we have really cut off the cartel.
Yeah, I think so. And we also, out of this agreement, we have cut out the other countries that are the people that are coming out of these countries, like Guatemala. So it's Guatemala, Panama, and
Honduras.
Honduras is the one where if the people come out and they say they're scared for their life, from this agreement, they get second dibs. They get a second questioning. Only from Honduras, though, not from the other countries, which is good. It's a whittling down of this huge influx of people. So if we can limit it down to Honduras, that's a step in the right direction. But I just want the people to know that this conversation started 5 years ago, 10 years ago. This isn't new. Only this loophole that they're taking advantage of is new.
Only a businessman president was able to accomplish this.
Yes.
Let's give kudos
That's
where
right.
it belongs.
Because he's been pulling at this. It's been a national issue for decades, but it's finally now become a reality because our class sizes are busting at the seams. We can't get into our emergency rooms, and that has nothing to do with races.
And don't forget, the Democrats did not want to stop the flow of illegal immigrants.
No, that's their
Right.
business model, future voters pouring in. But let me tell you, there was a great program. If you can catch it on podcast, and I know you can, Vince Daniels yesterday had Michelle Mears on, and she talked about the issue of Murrieta specifically. They are literally, because it is a border station, they have been flying them from El Paso to San Diego and then busing them to Murrieta. So they are stopping them in their tracks. And Murrieta is dead set against changing the demographics in their community.
Yeah.
And I say kudos to Murrieta.
Yeah, absolutely, because there has to be a line set up somewhere. And you hear the left, this representative in Minnesota, this Ilhan Omar,
Mm-hmm.
she says ICE it's un-American to detain illegal aliens.
You know
So
what?
our
She's not an American, so she doesn't really know.
Go
Well,
to
maybe-
your room, Ilhan. Okay?
Our police
We've had enough.
to enforce our laws, for our law enforcement to enforce our laws, they're un-American. And this is part of the problem. The left is demonizing our police officers, and they're demonizing people that stand up and say, no, we have law and order, and we want safety in our community, because that's next to go is our public safety.
Let me tell you who Omar is. She was a Somali refugee, came into our country from the goodness of our hearts, married her brother fraudulently to be able to come in as a married couple, divorced him, then married someone else and divorced him as well. She's now up for some kind of tax issue. So we're not going to be taking advice from her.
Yeah.
Yeah, why haven't they done something about that brother thing? I don't know.
I don't know. She's part of the Democrat Party. She's in leadership, and
she's
talk
now,
to Nancy.
Yeah, she is a spokesman. Actually, she's become a spokesman for the Democratic Party. You look at what happened just lately with the Hyde Amendment and how they're running from the Hyde Amendment. Anybody that stands with the Hyde Amendment is a pariah, and you're a sellout and a snitch. And I think it's disgusting. You have these 20 candidates in the Democratic Party vying for the presidential nomination, and they're starting to eat each other.
Well, you know, Biden just flip-flopped on that Hyde Amendment.
That's what I mean. You know,
After 45 years.
And now that he's done that, they're going to chew him up and just spit him out to the side because he's of no use to them anymore.
Well, that is so true. But, you know, the thing that is so gratifying is we wound up with someone that thought out of the box regarding the border. He knew, first of all, and Glenn, you brought this up before we started our program, the fact that the Republicans, there's a portion of them that were against the tariffs in Mexico. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the Chamber of Commerce of the United States, they have a lot of influence with Republican leaders, and they like the cheap labor, and a lot of small businesses along the border employ illegals, undocumented or illegals, and that are not lawbreakers other than coming here illegally, and they're okay with that. And so they got very upset with Trump when he threatened with the 5% tariff. Some of them were very vocal. I think the leader of the Senate was one of them.
Mitch McConnell. He said he would vote against it.
He didn't like that. My hope is that Trump will let the word out that, you know, we did the 5% and now we're getting along pretty good. But if a problem develops, we're just going to start at 10%.
Well, my advice to the Republican voters out there, take note of those that fought the president on this plan that actually worked. He has had several plans that have worked, and they continue to buck him. Let's take note of who those people are. Let's take names.
Yeah, the Republicans in D.C. are so short-sighted, and to me, they're kind of foolish. And I don't know if they're looking across the pond to see what the heck's going on over in Europe. But there's a reformation like we've never seen go on over there. And what's happening is Europe is finally said, we've had enough. We've seen the yellow vest situation going on. We've seen it on TV. It's been going on for months. The people have had enough with this top-down, enforcement of environmental policy and how to live our lives. They're tired of it. Just watching what's going on in Hungary, and you're going to see where the desire of the people are.
You're so right. And speaking of the elites telling you how you should think and what you should do, we have a big brother, you know, that tells us what we should do, what we should think. Its name, Google. When we come back, we're going to tell you what a conservative attorney is doing about it. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we're back. This is Jan Reed, Conservative Voice Radio, and I wanted to remind you guys, I didn't tell you on the first go-round that you can pick us up on podcast, get the Google app, put it on your phone, and your smartphone will be even smarter, so you don't have to hear us when we broadcast, but later. And we're on the internet, and you can go there, KMET1490am.com. Look for Saturday's programs. Find us at 2 p.m., and you can listen to us live then, or as I said, later on your app. And if you'd like to talk to us about any of these burning issues, we're at 951-922-3532. Now, when we left, I'm sitting here again to remind you with Glenn, Peter, and Diane from the Banning Beaumont Cherry Valley Tea Party, and we were talking about Big Brother. These days we call Big Brother Google. And Google is now facing a class action lawsuit brought by a Republican attorney, Harmeet Dillon, on behalf of the tech giant's conservative employees. So what's going on? Well, current and former Google employees say in a lawsuit that the company discriminates against non-progressives on the basis of their viewpoint, against whites, Asians, and males on the basis of sex and race. So in other words, the company is against, I'm going to repeat it, whites, Asians, and males. Google attempted to have the case dismissed, but a judge in California, thankfully, says no, political discrimination is illegal in California. So it's moving on in the legal process known as discovery, meaning that Google has to provide Dillon and other attorneys working on the case access to its internal documents. That's going to be worrisome because in the past, when their internal documents were exposed, oh boy, they were really biased. So,
Right,
compatriots, what do you think?
So is this a civil rights class action lawsuit?
Yeah.
Okay, that's right. So that's what I thought. So this is based on the political orientation, race, and gender of these people.
That's the way I think they're hitting it. Yeah.
Yeah, and Google says no, nothing going on here,
We're
right?
perfect.
No
We're far
show.
left, so we don't make mistakes.
The fire's over there. The fire's not in the silencing of our employees. These are not people that just use the platform. These are people that work there. You understand? That are go to work and that are sneered at. That everyone points at them and says, "Ha ha, that's the guy."
That's if you dare to say that you lean right.
Well,
You can't.
Yeah,
You
that's
can mistake.
terrible that they're victimized like that just because they have a different point of view. And I was really happy to hear that someone is suing and able to sue because it's not considered one of the protected, classes,
Well, it's
like
supposed to be.
ethnicity and
Well, you know
what have
who
you,
it
but
was, guys, that James Damore, he wrote a memo a year and a half ago saying that he felt that the company was unfair to its women workers. And he wanted more fairness, and for that they fired him.
You know,
That's what the lawsuit began as.
let me point something out local here, Jan. Today, I was talking to a retired businessman this morning, and we were talking about Donald Trump and things that are going, just general conversation. And he said to me, I got to be careful what I say, around people because I do kind of like Donald Trump. But I got to be careful saying anything positive or praising Donald Trump, or I could have problems. That was one sample. Just happened today.
Mm-hmm.
The other day, I went to a United IE meeting in Riverside, and we had a school teacher that's in the union speak, and he talked about how he was talking to a conservative union guy and about his conservative leanings. And he says, I got to be careful who I talk to because I could get in a lot of trouble. That is happening right here in Banning, Beaumont, Cherry. People that work for the government and for different businesses and just ordinary citizens, they're afraid to come out and talk about how they feel political. There's fear being put into the minds of our ordinary citizens that don't even work for Google. People listen to this radio station.
The last time I checked, this was not Nazi Germany. Okay?
That's the way it started in Germany.
If you're out there and you are a Democrat, God bless you. I'm happy you have a different opinion than we do. Yeah. We're conservative here, but I value your opinion. I would hear it. It wouldn't hurt me. I wouldn't go run and cry. I wouldn't cover my ears. I would listen to you. I would never stop you from giving your opinion. Why is that not happening on the left? Explain that.
I'll explain it. There's an organized movement by all the controlled media in the United States to foment hatred for anybody that is supporting Donald Trump and conservatives. This is a war not just against Donald Trump. It's against the 63 million people that voted for him.
You're so
people
right.
Have been molested and beat up because they're wearing Make America Great hat.
Look, I beg our local police and our firefighters, our emergency personnel, please call the show and call anonymously. Tell us your story about
Yes.
what you feel like in your employment, because the government is your boss. And if you can't speak out and voice your opinion because of a retribution that will take place, that's a crime. And we need you to call in. Please, it's 951-922-3532. And we'll put you right on. And we won't, you don't have to tell us your name, nothing like that. We just need to hear what's going on locally.
Yeah.
With the silencing
We
that's
won't
going
even
on.
give your first name. We want your opinion. This is sad that we are talking like this in America. And I want to tell you, they wondered how Hillary lost. They wondered how Trump won so mightily through the Electoral College. And it was because people were afraid to speak up. But when they got in the voting booth, oh boy, they voted. So I predict landslide 2020.
Well, that's just it. They weren't expecting it, the Democrats either. And so I think we're going to have to be on watch, though, this time, because now they are expecting it. So, I just can't even believe how this is. This is in the public schools, too, how they belittle kids. And we were talking to a young lady last week, I believe, that said how she had a teacher that was far to the left and was, really trying to impress her political viewpoint onto the students. And, and the ones that don't agree with that, or they weren't brought up that way, they're kind of like, really hesitant to say anything.
Yeah, exactly. I remember one of the best teachers I ever had was Miss Flynn. And what did she do? She ran the classroom. It was a civics class. She ran us like the Constitution. We had governing bodies. We had the populace. We had the senators, etc. We learned so much that year about the Constitution that today it has such a warm spot in my heart. She was so good at what she did. Why? She stayed out of it. She let us do it.
And we all have great memories of educators in our lives that shaped and molded our opinions of the Constitution and of family relations, all these things, our responsibility to our communities. But teachers now are made to choose between this sexual culture and just teaching the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic. And I know there's majority of teachers, they want to just teach kids how to succeed in life. They don't want to teach about this indoctrination. And them too, I wish they would call in too, our teachers who don't have a voice.
And we don't have civics anymore. And if we did, they'd be like really controlling that too.
And by the way, that was the segue to our third segment, because we're going to do a California update, and we will be getting on that sex ed. Just an update on it. We've got some good news.
On the media thing, there's another thing going with YouTube. They have a pressure campaign going to YouTube to demonetize private channels and conservative speakers.
Yeah, tell us about that, Glenn.
Right. There's people, I know of one speaker that is very popular that was making tens of thousands of dollars a month with his educational conservative videos. And they stopped letting him use credit cards over the internet, Visa or MasterCard, whoever it is, they get their PayPal.
To monetize
PayPal.
His showings.
Yeah, and just basically they're knocking these guys off one after another, and they're doing it under the basis, hey, this is a private company. If we don't like somebody's content, we deem it as too violent or whatever, we're going to knock it off. And these are programs that are nowhere near as talking about violence as Black Lives Matter and some of these other Antifa.
There is a Vox reporter, Carlos Maza, whose pressure campaign against YouTube contributed to the mass demonetization and banning of independent media and right-wing channels. The interesting thing is he actually said, milkshake them all. Now, if you've tuned into TV recently, you've seen that the politicians in Britain have had milkshakes thrown at them.
Yeah, Niall Farage, the guy, the big Brexiter.
And if they don't like your opinion, they throw milkshake on your soup. Now, what are we in second grade here?
This is only because they can get away with the milkshake. If it was up to those people that throw milkshakes, if they could throw some other substance on
More
you,
dangerous.
they would.
Yeah.
They would. I know these people. These people who want to take away your ability to speak, and this is how they do it. And they do it under the guise of compassion for all. And this is how they cloak it. But
well, and when I point out the fact that today it's conservative, next week, if you're not the right kind of liberal, it'll be you. Yeah. Do you think that people like that, when they have power, draw the line? There is never a line for them.
There's another means of attacking conservatives. People are known to be conservative. If you post something online, some information about some laws that are going through, like SB 329, sex eds for children in your community, and you're letting parents know about it, and you do a post, there's a small group that will come out and make very derogatory attacks and remarks, and they do this in a manner to try to get you taken down off Facebook.
So you're saying it's not just happening with the elites. The people have actually picked this up and are making it a part of their day-to-day interactions with others.
They have trolls that work to go around looking to make detrimental marks.
Mm-hmm.
And I have posted actual laws, SB 329.
That's a law.
Pending legislation.
It's information you're giving.
About a particular community, it's going to affect their schools and stuff. And I've had people go and say, you really shouldn't be doing that. Get out of here.
Well, that's crazy. Then let's talk about the weather, the car wash.
And they call me a Trumpster. He's just another Trump supporter.
Why? Because you're giving news?
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy.
Well, fomenting hate, like you said before, Glenn, that was a very good description of what's going on, because it's very hateful. The Antifa, they're the violent ones, and they're made to look like they're not. They'll defend them, and then if you say anything that's not along their way of thinking, then you're the bad guy.
Just look at the consolidation of power that we've seen over the last 5 years with technology. Google is on the cover right now, and we got Netflix too. You got who's owned by Netflix? It's Disney. And you got this Iger, the president of Disney, who's threatening any states that have passed abortion legislation. He's economically threatening them that he's going to pull out of their state because he doesn't agree that the states have a right to pass their own legislation.
Wait, let me see if I got this straight. One of the biggest customer of Disney is children, and he's okay with killing them. Is that the bottom line of this?
Not only that, he wants you to accept his viewpoint too, that it's okay to chemically destroy these babies.
Let me point something out to the people listening. If you own Disney stock, and there's billions of dollars in Disney stock out there, you got one man, the CEO, and a few directors around him. They're using your assets to attack a state in the United States. That's attacking our government, using the corporate stock and power of a major corporation to attack our government.
And the employees that work for Disney, I have a lot of friends who wish that they just gave up their profession and went and worked for Disney. It's a local business here, and that was their dream. But they would be ridiculed at Disney if they even expressed one iota of any kind of view that they hold dear to their heart. They would just be a pariah and an outcast.
Isn't that what we said about Google, Diane?
Oh, gosh.
It's the same background going on in these corporations, which is a frightening thing.
Well, I think it's a plan. All these big organizations, they make sure they infiltrate them and they get a hold of them. And now, we're in a war. We're in a war here.
I don't know how they do it, but they manage
Put on your war clothes.
They managed to get all these big CEOs like Eichner. They get them on their knees down to the powers that be and say, you will toe the line if you want to keep your job.
But his customers are children, folks. I mean, let's think of the irony of that.
He sold
Well,
out for money.
just that he represents Disney is just horrifying to me that he's would be that way.
Exactly. Well, our next segment
But it went
is
south years ago.
a California update, and I got a question before we leave for a break. You know how every week, being a woman, you're trying a new diet. Well, Caltrans is doing a road diet. Let me tell you about it when we get back.
Read that one, Jan.
You won't believe this. We'll be right back. Hi, folks, and welcome back to segment 3 of Conservative Voice Radio. This is Jan Reed, and I'm sitting here with Glenn, Peter, and Diane, and we're chewing over the topics of the day. But we wanted to get to California updates because, as you know, our crazy fruit and nut state is always coming up with something wild. And months ago, during the last election, as a matter of fact, we were trying to vote yes on 6, which was a repeal of the car tax. Because, how does that saying go? Fool me once, et cetera, et cetera. We knew that money, if this went through, no repeal, that money would go into the general fund. It would never go to the potholes and infrastructure. Well, let me say that Senate Bill 1, which was that bill, they made clear that the $5 billion a year in additional infrastructure spending would reduce congestion and make getting around much easier. And any normal person thought, well, yeah, I'm not going to repeal this. We need this. I know we've got potholes and we have too many cars on the road for lanes. Well, guess what? In the fine print, it's a road diet. And what is the road diet? It's roadkill for you and me, because what they did was they are taking out lanes and adding bike lanes. Oh, who knew?
Our
folks?
money at work for you.
Yes.
We'll fix
Who
you,
are
idiots.
these people? Are they on another planet?
Bike lanes and bus lanes and pedestrian lanes and scooter lanes, everything but car lanes, right? And this is their premise to get this through is this notion that the slower the speed, the safer it is. And this is not true, actually, because our cars are getting safer and safer. So they say, oh, look, this is for the public good because we have to reduce the speed of travel because when an accident happens, death occurs. Well, maybe that's
And
happens.
they want us to ride share.
They want us to ride. So they're saying that we just need to slow them down. And the way we do that is reduce the lane size and number. But what their real agenda is to get you on the bus.
Oh, gee.
Have you seen who rides the bus, Jan?
Yes.
I see them every day. I go to Walmart. They're all out in front, and they come up from Riverside, and they come up from
I always feel
Hemet.
bad for those folks.
Okay, and they got shopping carts and their garbage and all that. They're on the bus for a reason. For some reason, they're trapped on the bus. The politicians want us trapped on the bus, too.
Well, your cost of living would go down as far as gas goes, but I shudder to think
I don't think
what
so.
kind of a job you would get.
Your productivity goes down, too, at that
Of
point.
course.
Look, the car, and I'm going to stand, my car is just as valuable as my gun because it stands for my liberty and my freedom.
You hit it.
And if I want to travel across these state lines and go to a different state, I'm taking my car. And I'm not going to take my handcart because that's what they did to my people in 1850. They said, you got to go west. And we had no cars. Our oxen died on the plains. We had to pull our own handcarts. And that's what they're going to try to do with us. And it's not going to happen. They're going to try to get us on the bus or to get on these bike lanes. No, car is liberty and freedom and mobility and transportation and economic prosperity.
Yeah, I think the politician, when it comes to this roadkill, figured, if these people are dumb enough to vote the 12-cent tax against herself, hell, we can do anything we want with this money. Let's make it worse. So they'll vote to raise their taxes again. We get more money out of them. So I think that people got ripped off. They were misled on the ballot. And wait till cap and trade kicks in. That's what, another 73 cents a gallon?
Yes.
And they're going to do that 10, 15 cents at a time as they need money to go out and buy more roadkill when they get hungry.
And Diane, it's like Lucy with the football. You know, we keep thinking it's going to be different.
Well, everything they seem to do, the left, is anti-freedom. If you look at it, it's always the bottom line is anti-freedom. They take this away, they take this away, and we've talked about how the gun laws, it's bits and pieces, and pretty soon you can't have a gun, and they're going to take everyone to jail. They'll be breaking in your house to see if you have guns. So
Well,
it's anti-freedom, this roadkill diet.
If you look now, they're passing all kinds of laws, one right after another, that are absolutely ridiculous. And they're in a little bit of a panic because I think they realize they're losing the people. People are getting pissed off. They don't like what's going on in Sacramento. So they're passing laws to actually make it easier to cheat and steal elections and harder to audit the election process and registration. They're opening up the voter rolls where anybody can register to vote. They're going to make it where you can register at a commercial location. They're getting ready to do that right now. That's in process.
Right.
It's through the Assembly. It's going to the Senate and then to the governor. Anything to make it easier to steal elections, they're doing it because they're losing the people.
Well, they just did a poll in California, and the California legislature has a lower rating than Donald Trump in California. And you know this is a liberal state. So Can you imagine?
Well, there's been a giant sucking sound of all the middle class, leaving. So
if we can get the truth
I think the
out,
blacks are leaving too, really.
If we can get the truth out to the voters, what's going on and who's responsible for it, I think some heads would roll. We'd get some people fired.
Well, my thinking is when we get that ballot, we need to remove whoever has been in office on the Democrat side because they are ruining this state.
Yeah, they are. And I don't know if our people know this, but that Measure EE that just passed or didn't pass in Los Angeles County was an attempt by the school board to fill a void in their pension fund. So they wanted to tax the people. It was like 16 cents a square foot to pay for this gaping hole in their pension fund. And what California has done, the politicians in California, is they have decimated the middle class, and they've replaced it with government employees. Now, it might be, a firefighter. It might be, but it's a person that's it's going to vote their own benefit. And so we have this flipping in California, this undermining of the middle class, and now it's being filled with bureaucrats. Yeah. And now we just have to pay for their pension, too, with debt or tax after tax after tax.
College professors, I understand, some of them retire with $300,000 a year pensions.
Yeah, and that's only happened in the last 20 years.
And we pay for that.
Because of the funding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, we are fighting back. Let me tell you about AB 329. I've told you about it before in previous program last week, and that is the far left radical sex education program curriculum that's being taught in our schools, signed by Jerry Brown in 2015 and is now law. Well, there is a group. You can go to this website, folks. I hope you have a pencil and you can write this down. informedparents.org. And this is a group that is fighting this, and they have a petition on their website and a beautiful brochure telling you about this damaging program to our youth. If you go to the website, you can sign the petition for Senator Mike Morell's amendment to this law. It is bill number SB 673 is the amendment. And if you sign it, you would be protesting AB 329. What Senator Morell says in this bill is he wants parents to be able to opt in. Right now, you're automatically opted in. You have to ask to be out. He wants to reverse it so that you would have some power over this. And if you first read the literature and see what they're trying to put down your kid's brain, you might say, no, I want no part of that. Or religiously, no, I have a protest on that.
The Redland School Board just took a position that they're not going to have any sex education until the 7th grade. And the way they did that, the school board set up a special committee, a group, to interface with the parents. And the parents started to get involved. They went over some of this literature. And when they did, they were absolutely, totally outraged. I mean, some of the material I looked at, it should not be exposed even up through the 12th grade, period. Shouldn't be getting into that. That's just going too far, too fast. And when the parents become aware of it, they become outraged. Recently, we had a school board meeting at Beaumont High School, and they presented some information to the school board trustees. Hopefully, they'll take action on this and set up some kind of a committee or something to meet with the parents to go over some of this information. And I think they're also going to make them post everything they're going to teach online. And that's what Mike Morale's also trying to do.
Diane?
Well, this is wonderful that they're turning it around, that Senator Morale is turning it around back on them and saying, you know what, so parents, they have to, it'll be the opposite where the kids aren't being intimidated and put on the spot for the parents to have to, write a note and to get them out. And so I'm really glad to hear about this. And I wanted to mention, too, that Senator Morale, his time limit is up, and our own Lloyd White is running for his seat, and he's a wonderful guy. And they already go after him. I know when I've put good things about him on the internet, there was trolls that came after me. Just to say, he's going to be speaking or something, and then just boom, there they all are. So he's a really good guy. That's why, and they're already out after him.
I like to say that this Senate seat, is targeted. And the reason it's targeted because we are the new Orange County as far as being conservative. And they want to knock off this seat. He is being termed out and he's leaving. And we need a strong, proven candidate with experience. And Lloyd White meets the criteria. We're looking at all the candidates, and so far, he is far superior to anything out there that's considering running. But what happens, the establishment, the lobbyists, and the big money comes in, and they try to get their candidate in the primary. And that's what we're fighting right now. It's starting to happen. I'm just getting involved in this politics stuff, and it's unbelievable the way the lobbyists take control of the primary to select their candidate. And right now, they want a losing candidate because they want to put a Democrat in this position.
Yeah, back to this sexualization of our young people. I don't know if our parents and grandparents know, but that the World Health Organization in June 6th of this year just came out with a report that there is 1 million new sexually transmitted disease cases every day worldwide. And for the last 5 years, that trend has been skyrocketing up, which means our young people through these apps and their phones and through technology are spreading these diseases, even when we teach them about condoms and about sexual responsibility or whatever they call it. I don't know. But this sexual activity is just blowing up, and these STDs are exploding, and no one's talking about them. We think, oh, yeah, we should talk about it. It's going to do some good. It's done good with my kids. I think it's done good with the neighbor kids. I don't know. They're lying. It's not doing any good. It's actually getting worse, and they're trying to cover it up.
Well, that's good advice, Peter. And I wanted to say that I appreciate you giving us that information. And folks, again, out there, informedparents.org. Go to that website, get informed, find out what your child is learning. Because when they come home from school, you say, how was school? And they say, fine.
Because they don't know. They don't know what's not okay.
You don't know what's going on. Anyway, we've got to leave you folks. And it's been fun. This hour went by so fast. Folks, you want to say your last thoughts?
Jesus is Lord. Hope to be with you next week.
Yeah, Trump 2020.
Goodbye, Patriots.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. And we'll catch you next week. We love you guys. Stay tuned.